1 year ago, I uploaded my first video on YouTube. In an attempt to get Gaming for a solo challenge, I ended up with Arlecchino and made that the challenge account instead. 1 year, 20 videos, and over 30,000 subscribers later, it's finally time to return to our origins and see if one of the only 4-star DPS units can hold his own in a solo challenge. Or more accurately, if I can manage to survive this challenge without rage quitting midway through. Welcome to Gaming Impact. The rules for this challenge are the same as always. I can only use Gaming, but I can use other characters if necessary to move forward the Arc Conquest. I can use any weapon, and unlike with 5-star challenges, if I get any constellations, I can unlock them immediately. Not that I got any, but additionally, I cannot use co-op. Otherwise, anything goes. Before we begin, I have an exciting announcement. My Discord server is officially live. Come in to hang out and chat with me and your fellow wrenches in Ren's World by following the link in the description. I hope to see you there. I start off this chaotic mess of a challenge by giving him the absolute worst weapon, even though a perfect weapon was right there. Don't worry, I don't fix this. Then we head to Amber's domain. Despite this being a perfect 1-year anniversary video, I originally had full intention of posting this challenge prior to the end of 2024. When that didn't happen, I planned to post it for Lantern Rite since it was the anniversary of his release. However, a couple major roadblocks slowed this challenge's progress. And no, I don't mean the fact the account got soft blocked by Hoyoverse for a solid month, but we'll circle back to that later. Luckily, Gaming is a pyro character, so we can do Amber's domain as intended. Well, try to, anyways. Up next is Kaya's domain, and while we first have to serve up some steamed Hilly-Churl, I quickly found out his cutscene at Lantern Rite wasn't just for show, and after triggering his skill, he can bounce once on water. Unfortunately, the game didn't like that, and I had to skip the old-fashioned way. Lame. Finally is Lisa's domain, and unfortunately, Gaming is a short mail model, and so skipping this domain took a few tries. I know there's a science to skipping these domains, but, well, I'm bad at math, so we just kept trying until it finally worked. That becomes a common theme in this video, for better or worse. With Lisa's domain complete, it's time to grind for AR10, meaning it's also time for us to go over the pros and cons of Gaming, both in general and from a solo challenge perspective. The first pro is pretty obvious. Gaming is widely accepted as one of the only 4-star DPS units in Genshin Impact as of recording this video. Sure, any character can be made into a DPS if you're patient enough, or insane, but Gaming's kit makes him a DPS primarily, and that is exactly what he does. Even at C0, he's the highest ranked 4-star DPS, ranking A rank at C0 and S rank at C6. I'm basing this on Game 8, so take that as you will. Additionally, Pyro is one of the most useful elements in solo challenges. It's consistently the most needed element for Arc Conquest or domain necessary mechanics, and is strong against almost all of the boss enemies faced during the Arc Conquest. Emphasis on almost. Another pro that is admittedly a personal opinion, but he's just so fun to play with. As I've mentioned in previous videos, my personal ranking for characters tends to prioritize how much I enjoy their playstyle and battle mechanics. Case in point, my main team on my main account. Yeah. Anyways, continuing personal opinions, Gaming is incredibly adorable, his idols are absolutely iconic, and he is frankly just best boy. Going back to kit-related pros, Gaming also has an exploration passive that allows for a movement speed increase during daytime. Especially in early game when stamina is limited, this is a huge help in completing the quests quickly, or at least getting from point A to point B faster, which, to be fair, is a large percentage of early game. As you'll know if you've watched Arlecchino, Mizuki, or Furina, a self-healing character is hugely beneficial in solo challenges. However, his healing, at least until his first ascension, is locked solely to his burst. That said, his 4th ascension is where his HP levels end up benefiting him the most, by either boosting his healing or his damage. Not only that, but his skill itself eats at HP, making him far more susceptible to dying. I was tempted to put a counter of how many healing foods I needed to consume during this challenge, but counting all of them would probably take longer than the filming of this challenge took. Building a character for both DPS and energy recharge to be able to use his burst and heal more frequently is pretty frustrating in early game, especially as a solo challenge where we can't have a battery on the team. Though, I probably would have had a better time if I used a better weapon for him. Speaking of weapons, his best in slot weapons are either the Battle Pass Claymore, limited to events, or 5-star weapons. This isn't really exclusive to Gaming though. Genshin unfortunately has a nasty habit of making 4-star best in slot weapons be paid, or limited event exclusive. As I briefly touched on, while Gaming at C0 is an incredibly powerful unit, he really relies on constellations, especially his C6, to be at his best. I mean, sure, most characters are best at C6, this is still a gacha game after all, but it's an incredibly noticeable difference with Gaming in particular. Not that we'll see that firsthand in this challenge because, well, I didn't get any constellations, at least not in the first half. However, the most frustrating con that I faced in this entire challenge wasn't any of those things, it was his boss. I won't go into heavy detail on that right now though, I'll let you see that suffering when we get there. For now, I ended up being the dumbest person alive and walking all the way to Chenyu Vale, because the teleport waypoint doesn't unlock until after Mondstadt, thinking, oh, well Gaming is from Chenyu Vale, so of course his materials are from there too, right? Wrong. However, my journey was not in vain because it helped us reach AR 10, so it's time to return to Mondstadt to begin Act 2. One of these days, I just want to leave Paimon here and see what happens. You know how on DVD players, the DVD logo will bounce from each side, and once in a while it hits a corner perfectly? That's basically how the single brain cell I have works, and when it hits a corner perfectly, I experience a smart thought. In the case of this fight with the Eye of the Storm, it was just standing next to the Statue of the Seven and completely negating the damage. Thanks to that, we defeat the Eye of the Storm for Venti, this Animo Crystal Fly interrupts his speech, and the Knights are still really bad at their job, meaning we have to go break into the Fatui hideout. Honestly, I was kind of dreading this fight because, well, Pyro versus Pyro doesn't usually go all that well. Oh. One of the biggest struggles during the first part of this challenge was honestly the fact that Gaming's first Ascension passive is so important to, well, surviving. Like I mentioned, his skill eats HP, but without his first Ascension passive, the only way to get it back without food is his burst. Truthfully, I spent a lot of this challenge desperately waiting for his burst, and eating a lot of food. Luckily, Gaming's own HP put up more of a fight than the Fatui agent did, so we were able to reclaim the Lyre and start our search for the tears. Unfortunately, I made the fatal error of using Gaming's burst too early in the fight with the Ruin Guard, and we had our first death, of many, in this challenge. The second time was the charm with the Ruin Guard, and we managed to survive and collect the first tier. That was probably the hardest battle we'll have, right? We dodge the enemies for the second tier and then make our way to the domain for the third tier. Unfortunately, while Pyro is a super necessary element for moving along the Archon quest in several nations, there's an equally large amount of Pyro enemies that we face in early game. Case in point, this domain. Having far better things to do than chip away at the Pyro shield, we melt the shield in the water and complete the domain. We wrap up Act 2, meaning it's time to work our way to AR 18. More importantly though, it's time to try and get Gaming a better weapon. At the time of filming this, because it's been sitting in my hard drive collecting dust for nearly a year, there was no 5-star Claymore on the weapons banner, but there was a new 4-star Claymore that was rated up, and perfect for Gaming. Or at least it was probably better than the Bloodstained Greatsword. For the literal only time in this challenge, I managed to get lucky, so time to upgrade Gaming's build. With this snazzy new Claymore, we unlock daily commissions. The first round of daily commissions is always the same, but luckily 2 of the 3 battle commissions have enemies weak to Pyro. The 4th commission is feeding Timmy's ducks. I'm sure they're probably also weak to Pyro, but I don't want to face Timmy's wrath, so I'd rather not test that theory. Unfortunately, one of the commissions is both a hike to get to, and is led by a Pyro Abyss Mage. Did I not struggle enough with Arlecchino? After a humbling amount of time, I break the shield and defeat the Abyss Mage, completing my daily commissions for the day. The next day, we've got 4 new daily commissions, starting with the food delivery for Sarah at Good Hunter. Unfortunately, we're delivering food to someone actively being attacked by Pyro Slimes, so we have to defeat them, within a time limit. Well, that's new. Unfortunately, our next commission, while in a more convenient location, is defeating more Pyro enemies. This kind of feels targeted at this point. We get sweet relief at the last 2 commissions though, with the Cryo Slimes making an appearance again, along with destroying the Hilly Trail towers, which doesn't require fighting the enemies, so of course, I never do. After a bunch of leyline runs, we finally reach AR 15. Time to ascend Gaming. Unfortunately though, Gaming's new weapon ascension materials are in Natlan, so we'll have to wait until later for that.
Don't worry, girl. I got your back. From right here.
Okay, I'm convinced this account is actually cursed. After a 3rd day of daily commissions, we reach AR 17, so I decided it's as good of a time as any to start Amber Story Quest. Before heading to track down Raptor, I start Kaya Story Quest too, hoping that it won't block me from finishing Act 3 later. We head into the domain for Raptor, and almost immediately, I'm hit with a problem. Gaming obviously can't reach the Hilly Trail on the platform over there, but I wasn't willing to admit defeat this early. After several attempts at jumping onto the side wall, and seeing some crazy clipping on the other side, we make it onto the wall, and manage to bounce over the fence. Success. Gaming was also able to turn off the electro power sources, but the final task is one that has killed more soloed runs than I'd care to admit, the Hilly Trails on the platform. Unfortunately, try as I might, Gaming couldn't reach the platforms. Time to bring out Amber. Luckily though, we had no issues with Raptor and crew completing Amber Story Quest. After another round of daily commissions, with another Pyro Abyss Mage to fight, we reach AR 18, meaning it's time to start Act 3. We start off strong-ish with the Hydro Abyss Mage, and after burning the shield and beating up the Meta Churl, we head inside Storm Terror's lair. Now, unfortunately, I was incredibly aware of what I was in for with one of the 3 seals. I decided to just rip off the metaphorical band-aid and hope for the best. The good news is that at least a Claymore does more flat damage to a shield than a polearm or sword does, so it'll really just be a race against the clock. Successful, I breathe a sigh of relief, go activate the 3rd seal, and return to the tower to challenge Storm Terror. Honestly, I had no expectations for how this fight would go. I figured it would probably be a little better than like Mizuki or Kokomi, but that's a pretty low bar, so. Now, I teased one of them in my Skirk video, and I've shown them on Twitter, but not only do we have a Discord, but we also have mascots now. Meet May and Hay. Thanks to Midya, my fox familiars from my homeworld were able to join me in this world. While they take the form of cats to blend in, their mascot designs more closely resemble their true forms. May is incredibly clingy and loves sleeping under blankets or on me. She's super friendly and probably too smart for her own good. She learned how to open doors and also learned the methods to waking me up if she wants to play, even if it's 5 a.m. She definitely has a personality that more closely aligns with this world's house cats. Hay, her brother, on the other hand, has a personality far more fox-like. He's incredibly skittish and has anxiety, so he doesn't really like leaving the house. Relatable. But he loves belly rubs and watching me cook. He'll sit and cry at my feet until I pick him up so he can sniff whatever's being cooked. Truly a pair of personalities. Now that I've introduced you all to May and Hay, I can officially share some stories about them, but that can come later in the video. Somehow, I managed to defeat Storm Terror in only 2 rounds, so I guess I was worried for nothing. I'm sure the rest of this challenge will be smooth sailing. We return to Mondstadt, and Amber is nowhere to be found, which is weird, considering we, finished her story quest. Yeah. Of course, Kaya's story quest is still blocking us. Should have seen that coming. After talking to Cyrus and Kaya again, we're finally able to go talk to Amber. Never thought I'd look forward to seeing Amber. Finally, we're able to finish Act 3, marking the end of Mondstadt. Our first stop is to Natlan, so we can finally level up Gaming's weapon. Speaking of mascots, we meet the little guy in Natlan, and name him after Gaming's companion. Unfortunately, the domain consists of mostly the little saurians, so I closed my eyes, ran the domain twice, and decided that was good enough for now. I ascended and leveled up his weapon, worked on his artifact build, and then made the choice to head to Fontaine to find his boss. This single enemy changed the trajectory of this challenge completely, and honestly brought me the closest to quitting I've ever come in the challenge thus far. However, for now, all I did was unlock the waypoint for the boss before returning to Mondstadt. After hitting AR 20, I was finally freed from the curse of fighting Pyro Slimes for Good Hunter, but I still have to fight the Pyro Abyss Mage for another daily commission. If anyone's keeping track, that is 4 separate days that I ended up with the same daily commission. I get that there's not a whole lot of options for daily commissions in Mondstadt, but man. After finishing the daily commissions, I decided to head to Liyue to unlock his talent material domain. By some miracle, there's not a single Pyro Abyss Mage among the enemies I need to defeat for this puzzle. I guess they were all busy in Mondstadt. We drain the pool and unlock the domain. Unfortunately, you can't actually even run the domain until AR 25. I also failed to realize at this time the enemies that reside in the domain, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Speaking of bridges, to bridge the gap between AR 20 and AR 23, I mostly focused on handbook missions, exploration, and the one-off domains. One of those domains was the first domain we cleared back in Act 1. I figured since it says Pyro is recommended, I'll have no problem. I spent probably 15 minutes trying and failing to do the traditional Amber domain skip, thinking all I needed to do was get across the top and deactivate the electromechanism over there. Alright, well that didn't work, so I decided that plan B would be to defeat the enemies in the other room and then light up the Pyro Monument. Those of you who enjoy watching me suffer in a video, this one's definitely for all of you. I ended up just returning to the ley lines for a while, eventually hitting AR 21 and unlocking Razor's story quest. Honestly, I looked forward to this. At least there's no pyro enemies. The fight ended up being a little more dicey than I anticipated though, mostly because keeping Gaming's HP in the green is like pulling teeth. We finished Razor's story quest, and we're still quite a ways from AR 22, let alone AR 23, but we're making progress. We do some more exploration around Liyue, mostly collecting Geoculi to level up the statue, before I decided to be some more productive and unlock the statue of the 7 in Jueyun Karst. That obviously didn't get me much closer to AR 22, so I ended up just doing a bunch of missions in the book and more leyline runs. Finally, I managed to hit AR 22, so I decided that was good enough and logged out for the day.
3 days later.
A new day upon us, it's time to make it to AR 23 so we can start Liyue. Genshin finally decided to mix it up and give me a new daily commission, specifically helping Ella Musk communicate with Hillychurls. We don't do a great job at it, but it's better than fighting a Pyro Abyss Mage again. After completing the daily commissions, I went back to the ley lines. I ended up spending at least an hour, and most of my resin, before I realized I never even unlocked the waypoints themselves around the 3 Adepti abodes. Oops. However, it made hitting AR 23 all the more satisfying, by opening the chests on the dwelling in the clouds. Time to head to Liyue Harbor for the rite of dissension. Starting Act 1, we talk to some locals and get one single piece of potentially useful information, so we opt to hope for the best and go to the highest point in the harbor. There, we watch Rex Lapis die, and did you know that after escaping from the Millelith, you can go back and take a picture with his corpse? Now you know. Anyways, we meet Child, who sends us to go find the Adepti. First, we find Mooncarver. Mooncarver's boost actually was super useful with Gaming, and despite the fact we lit the entire area on fire, it was probably the easiest battle we've had so far. Mooncarver suggests we seek out the other Adepti. Well, the important ones, I guess. So first we go find Mountain Shaper. And you know what? I don't even mind breaking every single amber on the way down the mountain, because I can. After so many struggle challenges with swords, polearms, or worse, catalysts, a claymore is truly a dream.
Someone is
definitely looks like they didn't use.
Up next is Cloud Retainer, and despite being Pyro and being able to do this domain the way intended, I still tried to save time by skipping. The advantage Gaming gains with movement in the daytime seems to come at the expense of having no ability to stay gliding. Even when I thought I had the skip down, he still missed it. Eventually, I gave up and decided to just do the domain the old-fashioned way. In doing so, I had to fight a bunch of slimes, some hilichurls, and my poor stupid brain had to try and solve puzzles, which was truly the hardest task of all. Gaming having a really wide AoE with his skill actually ended up being an issue with this puzzle, because I struggled my way through lighting only the correct pyro monuments. I guess this is where something like Amber or a pyro catalyst would come in handy. Oh well. Eventually, we solved the puzzle, and I spent an additional 3 to 5 business days trying to figure out the right path to get to the end of the domain, and finally found my way to Cloud Retainer. It's time to go see our fellow Jumping Bean. Little did I know, I was about to suffer. After Zhao rejects us, we chase down Dusky Ming, who leads us to a Ruin Hunter. This Ruin Hunter must have been a close friend of the first field tiller, because it refused to stay at ground level for longer than 10 seconds at a time. Instead of beating it up and moving on, I spent 5 minutes just dodging literal missiles. Eventually, after several rounds of dodging so much you would think I was teleported into a shonen anime, we're finally able to defeat the Ruin Hunter, meeting with Zhao, and finishing the last of our tasks for Act 1. Unfortunately, this was only the beginning of my despairs. Starting off strong, we begin our journey to AR-25 with another food delivery commission with more pyro slimes, and then a pyro abyss mage. I made my way to AR-25, blissfully unaware of what was about to come, just speeding through ley lines and Gaming's weapon domain. Eventually, I hit AR-25, and knew it was time to ascend him. But wait, I didn't have any of his boss drops yet, so I made my way back to Fontaine.
Show's over. Folks.
Okay, well, in my defense, it's been a long time since I fought this boss on my main account, so once I figure it out, I should be fine. Just to be on the safe side, I leveled up his weapon, made a bunch of healing foods before going back. I'm sure second time's the charm.
I gotta run.
Okay, maybe this time I'll include some attack and defense boosting foods too. After all, I never made a rule on that.
Show's over. Folks.
I'm not exaggerating when I say I actually shed tears at that one. I was so close. Not to mention, it took me almost 6 full minutes, which in video game fight time feels like 6 hours. I decided I needed more preparation, and I made some potions as well. Unfortunately, what I failed to notice here was that I had no useful healing foods.
Forget about me. Just
At this point, I decided I had to step away and reconnect with nature, both in real life and in game. After spending some time outside touching grass, followed by running around half of Mondstadt collecting sweet flowers and frogs, it's finally time for some sweet revenge. Zhongli and his tasks can wait. We have to prove ourselves. Finally, after 4 attempts, we've defeated the Emperor of Fire and Iron. We are victorious. The game rewards our valiant efforts with 2 drops, which is good because I would have had a monumental crash out if it was only 1, and after hours of effort, we finally get to ascend. Oh, wait, hold on. I don't have the other materials. Anyways, like I was saying, after hours of effort, we finally get to ascend Gaming. Our next task? His talent book domain. Oh, come on. Alright, well that was also awful, but we managed to level up his talents too, so after all that, it's finally time to return to Liyue Harbor and begin Act 2. Never thought I'd look forward to this quest. As a pyro character, Gaming is able to heat up the pot on his own, though his methods are, well, a little awkward to say the least. Regardless, we managed to complete this task without issue, and after spending a whole lot more time running around Liyue Harbor, our cleaning task has arrived, and we head into Madame Ping's teapot. Luckily, Pyro is super beneficial in this domain, and we clear it without any issue, which, honestly, after the last few challenge runs, was refreshing. We wrap up Act 2 by clearing out some treasure hoarders at the Ballista before we sit down and enjoy dinner with Zhongli. I opted to go fight the Emperor of Fire and Iron again before ascending the world level, though I was unfortunately cut short because of the servers going offline for a new patch. I did end up being able to beat it a couple of times before the servers went down though, so at least there's that. A few days later, because I was prioritizing Archons only at this point, I returned to the challenge. Now, you may be wondering what patch I was in at this point. After all, I did say I recorded this a while ago. Well, it was Mawika's release. Fitting timing to upload this, right? Anyways, that meant a 5-star Claymore was rated up on Weapons Banner, and I was determined to get Gaming this weapon. For now though, the most important task is getting one more drop from his boss before the Ascension domain. Unfortunately, for this round, I failed to check if I had any healing foods ahead of time, which I didn't, and I had probably one of the most frustrating defeats to date. I mean, look how close I was. After bringing some healing food, we managed to defeat the boss. As a reward, I decided to do a single pull on Standard Banner. Huh, okay. Well, let's take this momentum and start pulling on Weapons Banner. Alright, well I put that aside and returned to Mondstadt to run the Ascension domain. So I mentioned that I can share stories about Mei and Hei now that you all know who they are. And the first one is actually one that I experienced while working on this video, so it's fitting. Hei, for whatever reason, has absolutely the most hot and cold personality ever. He either wants every ounce of attention or wants you to leave him alone. Not that he ever declines pets, he'll just ignore you until you get close enough and then roll over for belly rubs. Mei, for the record, just always needs attention. Hei's attention craving time, though, almost always occurs at inconvenient times. Primarily when I'm laying in bed. He won't jump into my bed and climb onto me, that's more Mei's job, but instead he'll just talk to the ceiling as loud as possible in hopes of getting my attention. I actually wrote this while laying down for a nap, and he decided it was the perfect time to walk into my room and yell for attention. He also makes it a point to stand just far enough away that I would need to get up to pet him. His personal favorite though, waking me up at 2 a.m. to rock him by the window while he wags his tail like a dog. Why would anyone want children when you can just get pets that have personalities of a perpetual toddler? In my homeworld, they're much larger in size, so I kind of wonder if they just see this as an opportunity to laze around in this world and enjoy the trials and tribulations of an average house pet instead of royal familiars. I suppose I can't blame them there. Believe it or not, Gaming actually only took 1 second longer than Mualani did in clearing the Ascension domain. Unfortunately, we were still shy of AR-27, so we had some work to do before hitting AR-28 and returning to Liyue for Act 3. I decided to start Diluc's story quest since, well, if the only requirement is a Pyro Claymore, I've got that covered. Wow, I must be one of the only people to actually die in Diluc's story quest domain. Despite some hiccups, we hit AR-27, finished Diluc's story quest, and still have a ways to go before we can start Act 3. At the time of this challenge, I had yet to realize the benefit of running the weapons domain in Liyue to grind experience, so I spent a while just chasing the ley lines. Eventually though, I got tired of it, so I decided to start clearing through world quests in Mondstadt before returning to exploration around Liyue. The next day, we started with Elon Musk deciding since language exchange wasn't working, it was time to try poetry exchange. How'd it go? Far better than language exchange, actually. Also, this is the first time I've ever gotten the poetry exchange commission on any of my accounts, even my main account. It's the last commission I need on Archons only to have completed all of the achievement commissions in Mondstadt. Unfortunate. After those daily commissions, I decided to finally head into the Spiral Abyss. Do I have any expectations on how Gaming will do? No, but I want the Primo Gem, so I'll take the risk. Floor 1 was an easy 9 stars, but Floor 2, I got 5 stars, and then died in Chamber 3. However, completing Floor 1 was all I needed for the Adventurer's Handbook, and I got some more Primo Gems. Now, let's use them. These pulls brought us to 57 pity on Weapons Banner, and for reference, 80 is the guarantee, so 23 wishes to go. I'm a little over halfway to AR-28, and so I decided to take a break from grinding to visit Gaming's home. As you can tell, this was not a speed run. First, of course, is taking the lovely boat ride. This is still one of my favorite things in the game. After finding his house, I ended up spending an unholy amount of time exploring Chenyu Vale. Why? Honestly, I couldn't tell you. Further pushing the record for slowest solo run ever, I went to Natland to do this event. When I say I was desperate for that weapon, I was desperate. Eventually, I decided to be actually productive, and after a domain run, a ley line, and some chests, we finally reached AR-28. Unfortunately, while Gaming can jump, it's not enough to help us get to the platform, so we have to bring out the Traveler for... Luckily though, we can handle the Middlelith by ourselves, and after meeting Kuching, we go to collect ingredients to cook Paimon. I mean, cook Paimon's recipe, obviously. We head up to the Jade Chamber and meet Ningguang, and you would think my next task would be to going and investigating the Fatui, right? I literally went back to farming Primo Gems. First, I unlocked all of the Shrines of Depth that I had keys for. That got me 3 more pulls, bringing me to 61 pity. At that point, I ended up going to Natlan to farm. Yes, I'm serious. One of the benefits of farming in Natlan is the sigil offering system. Not only do you get primo gems from the chests, but for every 30 sigils, you get an additional 50 primo gems. Absolutely not. And now, 62 pity. 63 is the trigger for soft pity, so we're almost there. But for now, I'm calling it a day.
Tomorrow.
Okay, it's a new day, so first let's do our daily commissions. Wait, what? How did I manage to get both poetry and language exchange on the same day? Meanwhile, I still can't get poetry exchange on Archons only. Ella Musk is finally able to successfully communicate with the Hilly Charles, giving us the achievement and the name card. As for the poetry exchange, we finished our daily commissions, but we're still short on some primo gems, so back to Natlan we go. Okay, we've reached soft pity for the weapons banner. Now let's see how many levels we can get from all the sigils. Wow, that's actually tragic. Okay, 65 pity.
Tomorrow for sure.
Another day of daily commissions, and I'm starting to feel like Squidward when he was doing the same thing every day. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, 66 pity. Well, the good news is we're nearly to guarantee now. I actually thought I was at 65 pity, but according to my wish history, this wish would have been 66, so I'm probably just going insane at this point. Wouldn't doubt it. Anyways, after collecting the daily commissions, we hit AR 29, and I opted to take a break from Natlan exploration to go back to the Spiral Abyss and try to get those missing 4 stars from floor 2. While I still couldn't beat Chamber 3, I did manage to get the 6th star from Chamber 2, so I got the 100 primo gems. And still no 5-star weapon. Back to Natlan we go, I guess. This is actually painful. My sanity is rapidly deteriorating at this point, so much so that I went to Dragonspine. Seriously. Eventually, after plenty of chests, I managed another single pull. This will be pull 69. I don't know what I expected. I just logged off at this point. The next day, we're closing in on the end of the banner. I couldn't let all of this work go to waste. Days worth of farming. It had to eventually pay off, right? Okay, this is wish 70. We are within 10 for the guarantee. I really should just put money into this account. No, I've made all of these solo accounts free to play. I can't stop that now.
Hey! Anyone know how many days it's been? I lost track.
43!
I've lost count of how many days I've been farming. My sanity has slipped away. All I have left is the hope that I can get him this weapon. Or even lose the 50-50 and get Wolf's Gravestone. That would be just as good. The last 2 challenges of the event I've been running in Natlan are unfortunately in Ochka Natlan, which I haven't unlocked. Time to go for a walk, I guess.
Later.
Okay, we made it to the challenges. We did the challenges. Now, it's time for wish number 71.
Someday, but not today.
If you're keeping track, that is 2 5-star weapons, neither usable by Gomming. Nice. Alright, well anyways, pretending all of that never happened, we go and claim our daily commissions, which brings us to AR 30. Unfortunately, that also means that the world level increases. I'm sure that'll go fine. I ascend and level up Gomming and his weapon, and finally return to Liyue to get back to the art conquest. Unlike with Skirk, I did my best to avoid the Vitui agents here, which resulted in the hilarious image of the Pyro Gunner just walking behind us while we investigate their super secret plans. We go find Zhongli so we can sing to some flowers, and oh man, I am so relieved that this fight went somewhat well. I don't think I would have been able to handle it if it didn't. Finally, it's time to go fight Child. I'm sure everything will go fine. We've made it this far, we can make it through this. Wow, okay. Yeah, of course we have to go through the full scene again. So here's a fun fact. Gomming was actually the reason I started doing Mondstadt to Inazuma for the first part of these challenges, because I genuinely did not think I would be able to beat Signora. So in my Skirk video, I asked for anime recommendations. A ton of recommendations, while they were right on the money for things I'd like, were also things that I have watched. Something I think I'll do, since a lot of people who watch my videos also seem to be anime fans, is go through and try to update my anime list and then link it somewhere. I don't know if I'll put it in the description of my videos. I think instead I might just include it in the links in my Discord. I have an anime chat in the Discord, so maybe I'll pin it there. Obviously, by the time this video comes out, I'll probably have it there already, but if not, feel free to remind me. The third time was the charm, and we finally did defeat Child. Now it's time to defend Liyue from Osile. As long as I can last until the Adepti boosts, I can do this in one try. Speaking of the Discord, I will ask everyone for some grace in the beginning while I work out any sort of kinks or hiccups. I'm not necessarily new to Discord, but I've never run a Discord server before. I consulted with someone and commissioned them to set it up, and then I added my own touches to it as well, but I really have no expectation of how things will go. I'll probably open up moderation or helper applications in the future, but I think I'd like to just see how it goes at first. I do have a ticket system which will go directly to me, so feel free to send any questions or concerns concerns, or feedback. I want it to be a very independent community and a place for you guys to be able to make friends and chat with each other and me, because I'll probably spend more time there than I should. If you see me there too often, be sure to bully me into working. Also, for anyone who's been a channel member in the past or is one currently, you'll be able to access the channel member and boosters channels. You'll just have to send a DM or ticket to me with your YouTube so I can confirm. But there's an explanation for that too. If we end up with more server boosts, I can customize the server more, so look forward to that. I plan to host giveaways and stuff, especially once I release merch. And of course, there will be giveaways around my birthday and the holidays. I'm also planning a big art contest for my birthday, but that'll be announced around October since my birthday is in December. Also, either you cannot die, or I got extremely lucky in this battle. Regardless, I will not jinx myself, and I will happily take that crutch. We successfully saved Liyue, meaning it's time to attend the Rite of Parting and complete Act 3. Boy, was that rough. After taking a few days to decompress, I returned to Mondstadt to begin the Dainsleif quests. Well, at least I should be fine against the Hydro Abyss Herald. We meet with Dainsleif and accompany him to the domain, which I immediately remember has a Pyro Abyss Mage at the end. There's actually 2 Pyro Abyss Mages, but the first one can be easily defeated by just hitting the Rain Rock. Does this actually have a name? Rain Mechanic? I don't know, I don't read the tutorials. Which probably explains a lot, actually. Regardless, it was a little dicey, but we managed to pull off the victory. After Dainsleif goes on a tangent about the Abyss, we head to Wolvendom. There, we find another Pyro Abyss Mage. I can't tell if this feels like Arlecchino but worse, or if the fact Gaming is a Claymore gives him a slight edge for being a little easier to break shields. I guess they both have their pros and cons. I did enjoy beating up the Cryo Abyss Mage, though. At least I got that small victory. Next, Dainsleif brings us to Stormterror's lair. I got a couple of benefits from this fight, one being that the Abyss Mages are Hydro, so I can at least vaporize the shields, and the Meteorals have shields I can burn. I've struggled in many challenges with this specific fight, but at least Gaming provides some relief. We finished the Dainsleif quest, so up next is heading to Liyue to start We Will Be Reunited. I don't think there's any Pyro Abyss Mages in this quest, so that should be fine. Up first is the domain and the Abyss Herald. I guess if there's any good news, it's that we only have to face the Pyro Abyss Lector in optional quests, so at least that's something. I have to find joy where I can. Reuniting with Dainsleif, we join him in investigating a few ruin locations. Luckily, during my grinding for Primo Gems, I did unlock most of the teleport waypoints in Liyue, so at least if I die during any of these fights, I don't have to hike all the way back again. The first round of Abyss enemies was pretty easy. It was 2 Cryo Abyss Mages, so Gaming took care of them without any problems. The second round, though, well, we were reuniting with our mortal enemy of this challenge. Not the Pyro Abyss Mages, though they were a close second. The Ruin Hunter. Just like with the Ruin Hunter during Liyue Act 1, this one absolutely had it out for us, and exclusively stayed up in the air just shooting missiles at us. This went on for so long that I ended up deciding to just stand there and let it hit me. Maybe I'll get tired if I'm not running away. You know what? I'm not even mad that I died, because maybe this time the Ruin Hunter will stay on the ground long enough for me to actually do any damage. I often wonder what I've done in my past life to deserve this. What wrongs have I committed that now force me to suffer in this eternal... Anyways, in the third attempt, I did manage to pull off a win. Barely. So time to move on to the third round of Abyss enemies. I forgot there was a Pyro Abyss Mage here. Fantastic. Yeah, that kind of went how I expected. Oh, thanks Genshin, I'll keep that in mind. Finally, after 4 deaths, we finish this one section of the Dainsleif quest. I'm sure we'll be fine facing Signora. Up next, we head to the cathedral to talk to Barbara. Except, I lost the footage. I lost all of the footage from here until we arrive on Rito. I have absolutely zero idea where it could have gone. I looked on every hard drive, both my laptop and PC, and I looked through every video I'd recorded on those specific dates. Nothing. So I guess not only is this a lesson to better organize my video footage, but also to just not record months in advance, because the longer we go from the time of recording, the more likely I'll mislabel the footage and either put it in the wrong folder or outright delete it. Though, to be honest, with how this challenge went, it was incredibly fitting. Anyways, we find ourselves on Rito, so at least I know I managed to survive the Abyss Herald in Wolvendom and Faye the Flyer when we meet Kazuha and Beidou. Regardless, there's not a whole lot that happens on Rito. We help with the tax fraud issue, before Chisato hires our gold standard guard of the Sword and Strongbox Secure Transport Agency. A smart choice, truly. Since this is, you know, his job, how did Gaming do in the transport mission? Not bad, actually. He got through the fight quickly, and the health of the balloon was still over 75%, so considering how this entire challenge has gone, I'd call that a great success. Just don't look at the smoking transport balloon. We make our way to Inazuma City and head inside the tea house. I don't know how many of you guys were here when Inazuma came out, but for those of you who were, do you remember when people were absolutely convinced that Toma was actually a dog spirit? Speaking of when Inazuma first came out, I remember how I played through all of Act 1, Ayaka and Yoimiya's quests, and Act 2 in one single night because I wanted to avoid spoilers so badly. I thought it was absolute cinema. I was also completely in love with how pretty Inazuma was, which is still true. I love Inazuma, its story definitely has faults, but I still enjoy the characters, the scenery, and the lore that comes from Inazuma. Speaking of lore, Toma brings us to see the Renova statue before we head to meet Ayaka. Ayaka requests us to help 3 men who lost their visions, but, Gaming's a transport guard, not a therapist. Don't you have one of those in Inazuma? Regardless, we find stuff for Tejima, beat up treasure hoarders for Kurosawa, and bring Domon to see Yaimiko. With that, we finish our tasks for Ayaka, meaning up next it's time to go break Master Matsukatsu out of prison. So going back to Renova, oh my god, that teaser was amazing. I cannot believe we finally have a reveal of the three of the shades. Also, finding out the statue of the omnipresent god seems to be Renova. It does actually make sense, since not only was she the one who cursed Conrians to immortality, which to A is probably true eternity, but also death is definitely omnipresent and eternal, so it's fitting. Not to mention how the visions were put into the statue's eyes, which is ironic since a vision is seen to be receiving a god's gaze, and it was said that to lose your ambitions is a fate worse than death, something that was also said in regards to immortality. I'm not really super into the Lupin lore, I usually need a TLDR for it, but it's so insane to me how many little aspects of the lore have been in the game since the beginning. Also, completely unrelated, but my entire Twitter timeline has converted from being strictly K-pop demon hunters to being a mix of K-pop demon hunters and that one horse game. You probably know the one I'm talking about. Admittedly, I've known about this series for years now because I love anime figures, and I always saw figures from the Pretty Derby universe. My honest question was always, oh my god, why are there so many figures of horse girls? It felt like it followed me anywhere I went to look for new figures or follow the new figure releases. So I guess it's fitting that when the game suddenly expanded overseas, that it exploded. I was trained in horse riding in my homeworld, so I'm not unfamiliar with horses, but we didn't have any horse-human hybrid species. Or at least, if there were any, I didn't meet them. I suppose it was possible, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless, I haven't downloaded the game yet because I don't have enough time nor sanity to invest into another gacha game. And my favorite horse, just from seeing her on Twitter, is the one who is nicknamed Pretty Derby Hard Mode. I don't think it would be the smartest choice for me to jump on that right now, but honestly, I can see the appeal. I'm glad the real Haru Urara is getting plenty of gifted grass to eat and finally won a casual race in retirement. Good for her. We finally get through the domain, saving Master Matsukatsu and wrapping up Act 1. Time for the story quests. Admittedly, I'm starting to think Gaming is the kind of challenge where if you can get to a point that he's leveled, you'll do fine. It's just getting to, say, AR35 or AR40. The further we progressed in this challenge, the easier it became. I don't know exactly why though. It could be because he was less death prone and doing more damage, or it could be the fact that by the time I reach this point in filming, I've done several solo runs, so my skills at Genshin have generally increased. After all the struggle we experienced in the beginning, I will remain thankful that it got easier. After defeating the thieves, we finished Ayako's story quest, so now it's time to listen to Yoimiya yap. Actually, now that I think about it, Yoimiya and Gaming would probably get along great. They both love to yap, they're both pyro. Yeah, they would definitely be besties. I need Genshin to introduce them. Setting that aside, we beat up the Tenryou Commission soldiers before going and beating up Keisuke, which helps us finish Yoimiya's story quest. Starting Act 2, we go look for our fellow pyro 4-star, but find out from Ayaka that she believes he's the target of the 100th vision seizure. Returning to the statue of the omnipresent god, it's time to see how we fare against A. Honestly, I didn't expect much, especially because the cutscene triggers when you get below a certain amount of HP, and, well, it's pretty easy for Gaming's HP to get that low, especially in a boss fight. We trigger the cutscene escaping with Toma and being told to seek out the resistance forces. After dodging lightning most of the way there, we find Teppei and beat up some samurai harassing him. They were surprisingly straightforward to defeat. It was mostly just about separating them enough to take them out one by one, despite Gaming having a wide AoE with his skill. It's just easier for me. We talk to Teppei, who invites us to meet Goro, the general of the resistance. Sir, have you considered, I don't know, not standing in the water in a lightning storm? No? Okay. Well, good luck. Still managing to dodge the lightning, we make our way to the camp, meeting our fellow Short King. Unfortunately, it's now time for part 1 of the 2 solo run killers of Inazuma, the archery demonstration. Alright, come on, Kujo-sara, let's get this over with. We take advantage of the rain to steam up the shogunate soldiers before fixing the fence and heading to the front lines. The fights of honor, like the rest of Inazuma so far, were easier than any of the fights we faced in Liyue or Mondstadt, which is kind of tragic. But maybe that means we've finally gotten past the hardest tasks in this challenge. Well, besides Signora. If Arlecchino died 3 times in that fight, I don't even want to know what will happen to Gaming. Though, if you're watching this video, I must have beat her at some point, so at least there's that. We hit AR35 just prior to finishing Act 2, so after completing the quest, we return to Mondstadt to ascend Gaming, unlock his 4th Ascension passive, and level up his weapon and talents. With all that done, we return back to Inazuma and met up with Teppei to begin Act 3. After a long ride in the tiny ship for us and Teppei, we reach Watatsumi Island and meet with Kokomi. Kokomi names us Captain of Swordfish 2, so Gaming gets to add another title to his resume, and some soldiers to show off to. We may not have Moika's weapon, but at least we have the weapon that increases plunging attack damage. I guess it's better than nothing. Yes, I'm still bitter, and no, I'm not going to try pulling for her weapon again now that it's rerunning. After showing off to the soldiers, we head to the other side of the island to fight some shogunate samurai. I was a little apprehensive about this fight since one of the samurai is pyro, but surprisingly, that was the one that went down first. I don't know if the water helped me trigger vaporize reactions, or if it's just Gaming finally showing his DPS abilities, but regardless, we finish off the samurai and return back to Kokomi to give a report. Kokomi sends us to investigate some ruins, and unfortunately, this is the second of the 2 solo challenge killers in Inazuma. Let's put Lisa to work. I think this fight is definitely where I've noticed both Gaming's increased abilities and his 4th ascension passive. I mean, to be fair, I didn't ascend the world level after leveling up Gaming, so now it's level 70 characters versus level like 40 to 50 enemies, but hey, listen, I think I deserve the enjoyment of easier fights. Returning to Kokomi, we find Goro explaining that some of the soldiers have shown accelerated aging due to weapons from an anonymous supporter, the weapons in question being delusions. We call up our fellow pyro user from Liyue, Hu Tao, for Tepe, before heading back to Yashiori Island to find the delusion factory. So like I mentioned before, obviously I didn't ascend the world along with Gaming, and I'm sure someone out there thinks, oh well that's not much of a challenge. If we're going strictly with the challenge aspect, it would end as soon as I was unable to do Amber Story Quest domain, or when I started eating healing foods. There's always a goalpost that can continue to be moved down, but at the end of the day, any solo run is still going to be a challenge, because Genshin is a team-based game, and all characters do better with teams. I actually recently thought of a challenge though that might be the most torturous thing I could possibly consider, but I don't actually know if it's something that's possible. I mean, I guess of course it's possible, but I also think it's something I'd probably like to stream, so that would be way down the road. Maybe now that you all know Mei and Hei, it would be okay to stream while they're awake, because if they interrupt me, well, you all know who it is, so it's fine. The only real issue is my neighbors and the almost constant work going on around my apartment building. Last week, I woke up super early to go with a friend for like a big monthly grocery shop, because yes, believe it or not, I do leave the house. But then the literal next day, the tree people showed up to cut up all the broken and down trees from the storm I mentioned in Skirk only, at 8 a.m. sharp. I genuinely was like Squidward that one time when he was woken up by SpongeBob. That was fun. Sometimes my landlord notifies us if they'll be doing work outside, but something like that just kind of shows up and then proceeds to be outside all day. Plus, pressing the go live button is actually terrifying, more so than uploading videos. With uploading videos, I can confirm everything is good and fine, but when you're going live, anything could happen, and I don't know why that terrifies me. Probably just anxiety. With the Delusion Factory cleared, up next is something that doesn't necessarily kill solo challenges, but certainly kills my spirit, the Anti-Raiden Shogun training. In good news, I've gotten a bit of a strategy for the first round, just constantly running around the outside edges. That's it, that's the strategy. If it works, it works, right? The second round is where things are a little dicey. Unfortunately, the first group of enemies is a bunch of pyro slimes, meaning we just have to brute force them while dodging the lightning machine. Once we defeat them, the Meta Trails mostly have the shield, and the Hilly Trail shooters are cryo, so that half isn't so bad. All of this is much preferred to trying to fight with Gaming before his first ascension in the early game. Having succeeded in our training, it's time to get the rest of our plan, Yaimiko's plan, together. First, we go meet with Sayu and bring her to the tea house. From there, we have our dinner, we introduce them to the beauty of dim sum, after all it's a tea house, and then go light off some fireworks. We managed to avoid getting caught, so after showing Kujo Sara the proof of betrayals at the Tenryu Commission, we join her for a fight. I think these final fights are where I felt the most difference in Gaming. I do think it was partially my own skills getting better, and my sanity growing stronger, but Gaming has definitely also gotten better. I think above all, this challenge has shown how different it is with Gaming in early level versus higher level. He's definitely the kind of character that shines once he gets leveled, especially with his 4th ascension passive. If I ever redo this challenge, which I won't, I'll just speedrun to AR35 before I go do Act 2 in Mondstadt. Before we went to confront Signora, I made sure to prepare for the battles. Well, the best I can. Here is the build we're rocking. I know. Amazing. With leveled up artifacts and plenty of healing food, it's time to cross our fingers and hope for the best. Alright, it's time for me to get sentimental. So, it's been a year. Isn't that crazy? Honestly, I partially didn't expect myself to stick with this, though I also didn't expect to grow so quickly. I feel like I kind of ended up with a bit of imposter syndrome at the beginning, but now I've started to just go with the flow and enjoy making content, while also enjoy seeing you guys happy with my content. I know I always say how thankful I am for everyone who watches my videos, but I really don't think I can even begin to express it with words. Whether you religiously watch all my content, or watch once in a while, whether I'm your favorite content creator, or if I'm just someone you watch when I show up on your home feed. I'm so thankful for all the support. Being able to create content people enjoy has been something I've wanted to do even before I knew YouTube existed. I used to make home videos with my webkins. Yes, I still have those videos. No, I will not share them. I have a lot more content planned for the future, both related to Genshin as well as my own personal VTuber lore and such. I'm looking forward to the day that I can start streaming too, but for now, I'm excited to chat with everyone on Discord. You guys, I could could not believe it. Gaming beat Signora in only one attempt. Yes, I know it's level 47 Signora versus level 70 Gaming, but I think Arlecchino was also leveled up like that too, so shush. The hardest fight, the only Pyro final boss, I think, has been defeated, and I didn't even die. Since we dodged death, it's Signora's turn, which means now it's time to confront A. Circling back to future content, I'm going to definitely put more focus for now on finishing challenges. The solo challenges, Archons only, is going to be a very long challenge, because I want to at least have everything I've posted until now finished before I go to Korea in the fall. Speaking of, I'm really excited because Korea has both a huge Genshin cafe as well as a Genshin PC room. I'll definitely try to make content showing it off to you guys. As for when Nodecry and Snezhnaya comes out, I'd still like to do those in my challenges, probably just as a random quick video so it doesn't feel insanely repetitive, if that makes sense. We end up not even needing to use any of our spare lives and managed to beat A, completing the Inazuma Archon quest. Truly, I was worried for nothing. We've got one last obstacle to finish this half of the challenge. Unfortunately, this specific quest has a few Pyro Abyss mages to beat. Well, I guess it can't all be smooth sailing. Why is everyone always at Zhongling's restaurant? After getting our commission from Catherine, we begin the Chasm quest. I didn't unlock any waypoints near the Chasm, so I guess we're taking a hike first. Finally making our way to the Chasm, we meet with the Commissioner and head underground. There, we reunite with Dainsleif and agree to investigate the Chasm together. After 3 rounds of Black Serpent Knights, it's time for another battle with our old buddy, the Abyss Herald. So, literally nobody asked, but I have recently realized the unfortunate fact that I am addicted to energy drinks. While making this video, I ran out of my Monster. I like the rehab flavors, in case anyone cares, and so I ordered it on Amazon because they're like the only ones who carry the box. And I swear, they walked it to me. Meanwhile, within probably a day of not having any Monster, I was having migraines. I always get comments being like, I like your voice, please don't ever smoke. Meanwhile, I saw a TikTok referring to energy drinks as refrigerator cigarettes. So, don't worry, I already have my vice. One that at the very least spares my lungs. Pushing through that, we defeat the Abyss Herald again, this time moving on to the Abyss Lector. On the topic of being taken to church, I recently got to see Hosier live, and oh my goodness, it was so much fun. Midya and I made a trip to Boston to see him there, and it was excruciatingly hot, but the concert was amazing and worth practically melting. I wish we had more time to explore Boston, but it was kind of an impulse trip when tickets were announced, so maybe in the future. I've been a fan of Hosier for so long, so finally being able to see him live was absolutely incredible. Full disclosure, I did cry. With the Abyss Lector also defeated, it's time for the part of the quest I was dreading, the Pyro Abyss mages, and friends. I think the most difficult part of this is the fact that the grass gets lit on fire, which in turn lights Gaming on fire, depleting his HP. I can dodge the Pyro Abyss mage attacks all I want, but there's not much I can do when I need to be close to break the shield. We managed to get through the first one unscathed and then head to the next one. I guess if there's anything good, it's the fact that the first 2 were the Pyro mages, so I can go through the other 2 with a little more enjoyment. Maybe. Unfortunately though, the Electro Abyss mage is always an absolute nightmare, and got us the closest to dying we've come since reaching Inazuma. Actually, isn't that crazy? I don't think we've died once after starting the Inazuma Archon quest. The third room is the Electro and Cryo mages, and this time it was us being the ones to light the grass on fire, making breaking the shields easy. 1 more to go. Oh, yeah, I forgot there were 3 Pyro Abyss mages. After we bully the Hydro Abyss mage, we chip away at the Pyro mage's shield. Eventually we succeed, meaning we can deactivate the final device and complete the Chasm quest. Wow, this was a chaotic challenge, and a very long wait. I appreciate everyone who's been waiting for this for a while. I hope you enjoyed my struggling, and look forward to the fact it'll be easier come Sumeru onward. I hope. Thank you all again for supporting me this last year. I look forward to many more years making content for you guys if you'll let me. As always, a special shout out to my channel members. Some of you will soon be seeing the 1-year badges. If you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the little bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time.